guys, it's Haley and welcome to another bookish video. Today we're going to be getting into my July wrap-up where I go over all of the 18 books that I read in the month of July, and I had an amazing reading month. Obviously I read 18 books, like that is so many. Granted, I did go on a couple vacations throughout the month of July, so I had more reading time than I usually do when I am working full-time. I also did a 24-hour readathon in July, so I was really cramming in the books unintentionally. I don't feel like I was marathoning any books other than obviously the readathon, but I loved probably 90% of the books that I read so much. I cannot wait to rave about them. I cannot wait to recommend so many good reads to you guys. But before we get into my reviews, let's go over my stats. As I mentioned, I read 18 books in the month of July for a total of 5,975 pages, and here is my mood breakdown. Kind of all over the map, but of course dark, tense, and mysterious are my biggest pieces of the pie because they always are. I'm a thriller and horror girl, that's just how it's gonna be. As for pacing, I actually read more medium-paced books this month. I had 12 medium-paced books and then 3 slow and 3 fast, which is definitely out of the norm. Usually I'm reading fast-paced books all month, but maybe that's been burning me out because I read a lot more books when I was reading medium-paced. As for page number, the majority of the books that I read, 15 of them were between 300 and 500 pages, and I did have 3 that were a little bit shorter, under 300 pages. I read all fiction books this month. I actually did crack open a couple nonfiction books, but I did not finish them in July, so I'll have to talk about them in the month that I finished them, but I did start or make progress in a couple nonfiction books. As for my genre breakdown, as you can see, mystery thrillers were definitely at the top, followed closely by literary and contemporary and horror. Across my 18 reviews, I had an average star rating of 3.78 out of 5, which is pretty damn good, especially for 18 books. I did have one 1-star read, which we will get into, but everything else was average or above. I had one 2.5 star and one 3-star, 2 3.5 stars, 9 4-star books, 3 4.5 stars that almost reached the 5-star mark, and then one shining 5-star read standout of the month. And here's the breakdown of how I read those pages throughout the month. You can see the little spikes when I went on vacation, and the big spike was for my 24-hour readathon. So now let's go ahead and get into the actual reviews, what I thought about the 18 books that I read in July. As always, we're going to start out with my least favorite book and work our way up to my very favorite book of the month. The 1-star book that I read in July was When the Lights Go Out by Mary Kubica, and I already talked about this one in my breakdown of Mary Kubica's entire backlist. I read every single one of her thrillers and did a full video where I give you reviews of every single one of her backlist books and I rank them at the end of the video. If you missed that one, I will link it up above and down below so you can watch it, but this one was definitely on the lower end of the ranking. I did not enjoy it at all. Honestly, the majority of the book was like kind of fine and reading as an average thriller, but the ending twist was literally bullshit. The ending twist completely negated the entire story and made it feel really dumb and pointless. It was one of my pet peeve kind of twists, and I didn't like it at all. I also thought the writing was really poor in this book, so I'm not even going to go over the synopsis of this. If you want to hear my full review, you can watch my Mary Kubica video, but I don't even think I need to tell you what it's about because I don't recommend you read it. You're just going to get really annoyed with it like I did. And if you did end up liking this book, I'm really happy for you, but for me, I just could not see past that heinous twist. I did have one 2.5 star book that I read in July, and that is It's Not the End of the World by Jonathan Parks Ramage. I read Yes Daddy from this author previously and really loved it, but this one didn't quite meet up to that standard that was set by Yes Daddy. I do like reading from this author. I think they have a really darkly funny and clever, socially conscious writing style. I love that they always feature queer main characters, but the premise of of this book didn't quite get the execution that I was wanting. Basically, we are following the apocalypse in this book. We're following, I think, like 20 or 30 years in the future, and the world is basically breaking down. All of our power structures are collapsing, and we're following some queer people as they try to navigate their way through the end of the world. But these are not just any like average queer people. These are like the rich elite of Los Angeles. So while the rest of the world is crumbling, they're concerned with, you know, having a luxurious baby shower, and if the cake is going to get delivered on time, and if their little weather control that's going to go over their mansion is going to be able to hold back the torrential toxic mist in the air as we come to the end of the world. So it's actually really great setup, but like I mentioned, the plot just wasn't executed with the exciting apocalyptic nature that I was wanting. At the beginning of the book, probably about the first half, we have this countdown waiting for this like big moment of the apocalypse, and it didn't have the payoff that I was expecting, and I also didn't feel as attached to the characters as I wanted to because they were so unlikable in a very irredeemable kind of way. And this is just kind of a personal thing, but it also included some like cultish stuff, and I do not like reading about cults. I don't know why. It just like puts me to sleep. I cannot read about a cult. Something about that setting and like everyone wearing the same thing and like the predictable structure and tropiness of it, I do not like cult books at all. So this one just wasn't for me, but it was average because I did like the writing style and I thought the premise was cool. I think this could work for someone, but it just didn't work for me. And then we will get into my 3-star rated books. We have another Mary Kubica book. This is Don't You Cry, and we are following some mysterious perspectives in this book. We kind of don't know any of our main characters. They're all kind of unreliable and elusive. We're following one girl whose roommate has gone missing, and she's kind of blaming herself for being a shitty roommate, not checking up on her, not being conscientious, and making sure that they know where each other are. So she is on a wild goose chase to find her missing roommate. And then we're following this other perspective who is this guy, and he's kind of falling for, becoming obsessed with a girl that is coming into his work, and we assume that that is the roommate and that maybe he's done something to her, and we're waiting for these two perspectives to cross paths, but of course nothing is what it seems. And this is kind of just a fine thriller. I didn't have a bad time with it at all. I just don't think it was super unpredictable. I kind of knew what was going to happen. It's kind of tropey, but it was an easy read. It was a quick read. It was atmospheric and rainy and nice, and just a good average thriller to read on a dreary day. So nothing absolutely stand out about it, but nothing horrid about it either. Oh, I actually only had one 3-star book. Now we're going to get into my 3.5-star rated books. Starting out with The Men. This is by Sandra Newman. I've never read from this author before, but this had a really interesting concept, and I picked it up actually in a bookstore in New York City when I was traveling there this past month, and I started reading it just sitting in the bookshop. It was like a wine bar bookshop type of thing, and I just read the first chapter while I was sitting there drinking my wine, and I was like, okay, you're coming home with me, because I was immediately hooked and immediately intrigued. Basically, the premise of this book is that one day at the same time, all the men and boys, basically anyone with a Y chromosome, disappears. And it's about how the people who are left are coping with that, and it's like elation and freedom, but also crushing, paralyzing grief and the collapse of the society. It is so socially conscious. I loved the commentary in here. It was the best kind of like social commentary dystopian book that I've read. I love this style of book, but I felt kind of similar to this trajectory of the plot as I felt to The Violence by Delilah S. Dawson. When I read that book, I loved the premise and I was immediately intrigued, but it just kind of fell apart over the course of the story. It got kind of like derailed into following characters that didn't really make sense, and it stopped expanding on the plot and the commentary that I was really enjoying. So overall, I think it's a really good book, and I think it does good stuff. It's well written, it's interesting, but it just got a little sidetracked and a little derailed and knocked me off course. Definitely affected my enjoyment of the latter half of the book, but like I said, I don't think it's bad at all. I just did a video actually on my Patreon explaining my star rating system and what it means. And basically a 3.5 star is like above an average 3 book, but below a 4 star where I would just like blanket kind of recommend it just because it had a couple caveats in there. But if this sounds good to you, I would suggest that you still pick it up. And then the other book that I read in July and rated 3.5 out of 5 stars was A Happy Marriage by A.R. Torre. This was the new A.R. Torre release, and I always read her new release thrillers. I absolutely love her writing. In this book, we are following a man who is a serial killer, and his wife is a homicide detective, and she doesn't know that the killer she's trying to catch is her very own husband. And this book was wild. It had me sucked in the entire time. I was so intrigued. It's super twisty and nothing is what it seems. It's a wild premise, but it's very plot driven. Like there's not a lot of insight into the characters. I didn't feel super connected to the characters, and it kind of did a similar thing to The Men, where it got sidetracked in this one part of the plot that I wasn't super interested in, and everything else kind of went to the wayside. I don't think it stuck the landing perfectly, but I had a really fun time reading it, so I definitely don't regret picking it up, and I would recommend it if you like A.R. Torre. Next up, let's get into my crazy amount of 4-star reads. These are all really great. These are ones that I would just like blanket recommend to anyone because I think they're really solid reads. They're all across the board, all different genres. I'm gonna kind of speed run through these books because they're all really great. So let's start with a thriller. This is the new Liv Constantine release, Don't Open Your Eyes, and this is a domestic thriller about a woman who kind of has this perfect life until she starts having nightmares and visions about everything falling apart, losing her perfect marriage, her perfect children, her perfect house, her perfect job. And we are wondering if she is having premonitions of things that are actually happening because a little bit of the details of things are starting to come true. And this book was super entertaining, really solid thriller. It was so twisty at the end. I love Liv Constantine's writing style. It was really psychological and just a fun, easy read. I loved it. Next up, we have a kind of quirky literary fiction read, and this is Sky Daddy by Kate Folk. I actually read this on an airplane ride, and it was a perfect read for my plane because this is following a woman who is sexually attracted to planes, and her pastime is riding planes and pleasuring herself on the plane and hopefully finding a plane that wants her back and wants to marry her, which to her basically means that the plane will go down with her in it. Yeah, she has a lot of issues. She's a very interesting, intriguing main character to follow, and we kind of follow her trying to make a normal life for herself as this obsession takes over. It is super funny, dark, character driven, and just insane. If you want a fun, quirky book that goes off the rails and kind of reminds you of My Strange Addiction, read Sky Daddy. And it was so fun to read it on a plane. Like, it was just the best reading experience ever. It's not a favorite of all time, but God, it was so good. Next up, we have a YA book, and this is a mystery that was really solid and perfect for summer. It's The Summer She Went Missing by Chelsea Icasso, and this is about a girl who would summer at the same place every single summer. She stayed in this lake house, and she made friends with the brother and sister that co-owned the lake house. And last summer, the sister went missing and and she also started a romance with the brother. So now this summer, her and the brother are trying to figure out their weird fledgling romance and also solve the disappearance of the sister. It really, really reminded me of A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. If you like following a perspective like Pip, you will love this book. It was solid and exciting the entire way through. It had great summer vibes. It kept me on the edge of my seat, didn't predict the killer. It was just really solid. And yeah, if you like A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, anything by Holly Jackson, you should definitely pick this up. Super similar vibes. Next up, let's talk about a Kindle Unlimited thriller. This is So Happy Together by Olivia Worley. And this is like an unhinged online dating thriller. There's a lot of really funny, great commentary in here about online dating and just dating kind of as a zillennial. I feel like it captures that experience so well. I felt so seen and understood while reading this book, but our main character is also kind of off the rails because things end with a guy that she was just like casually dating from Hinge, and she cannot accept it, and she gets obsessed with him and she starts stalking him and inserting herself into his life. It's really twisty. It kind of goes off the rails at the end, and I really, really liked it. I think this is such a solid thriller. It also takes place in New York, and I read it in New York and the vibes were immaculate. If you're ever traveling to New York, this is a great one to read while you're there. And I just feel like Olivia Worley like gets the vibes. Like this felt like a very real thriller, but also it was so ridiculous. It was just the perfect juxtaposition, and I'm going to be recommending this one a ton for fall. Let's get back into more literary stuff. I have a novella for you, and this is The Swimmers by Julie Otsuka. This is a really sad, reflective story about a group of people that swim at the local public pool. And one day there's a crack that appears at the bottom of the pool, and this ends up getting the pool shut down. We see how all the different swimmers are responding to this crack and losing their like safe space of community. And in particular, we're following one of the swimmers named Alice who has dementia, and we see how losing this space affects her, and we go into how her illness affects her life and the trajectory of the rest of her life and her family, and it gets really sad and emotional. I think it was really, really, really well done, but I kind of didn't know the depth of the sadness that I was getting into when I was reading this book. It has a really hard tone shift at the 50% mark that didn't land perfectly, but with that said, I do think it's a really, really amazingly well written book. The word choice in here, the flow of the writing was phenomenal. So I highly recommend it. Just kind of be prepared for that tone shift because it is quite stark. And the rest of my 4-star books here are all solid thriller wrecks, so let's get into them. We have Stone Cold Fox by Rachel Collar Croft. This is about a woman who is basically a gold digger, and she's not afraid to hurt a man. She is kind of unemotional and calculated, and she's got her sights set on a rich husband. She knows exactly the man that she wants to target and marry, but the problem is that this man is surrounded by other strong women. He has 2 sisters, an overbearing wealthy mother, and a high society female best friend, and they are all guarding him closely. So we see our main character, the Stone Cold Fox, as she has to maneuver around all these obstacles and try to get to the gold that is this man. It is endlessly entertaining. It is so easy to read. It is darkly funny, and again, this is another like unhinged woman story that I just really get a kick out of. I love these kind of books. If you like thrillers like that, you will love this one. Next up, we have The Summer Holiday by S.E. Lines. This is the new release from S.E. Lines for this summer, and I thought it was so good. This is a vacation thriller about a couple who go to stay at their summer house in Spain, and while they're there, the wife ends up running into somebody that they knew from college, and she invites her over to the summer house, and she's like, oh my god, like, let's reconnect, this is so crazy. And when she brings her in the door, she notices that there's a moment, okay? A very telling moment between this woman and her husband. And she starts to wonder, do they have a relationship? Do they have history? Because clearly something happened between them. And this book is solid. It is a really great psychological thriller. It has this like lightness and easiness to it. It's just like easy to flip pages because it's so summery and juicy and scandalous, but it's also like deeply psychologically thrilling, and it goes into some pretty dark stuff. I absolutely loved it. This is just like classic SE lines for me, where there's a little bit of like meaning in there. There's a really satisfying ending. It's not the most twisty thriller in all of existence, but the psychological nature of it just keeps you intrigued. I loved it. Next up, we have With a Vengeance by Riley Sager. This was my Pretty Girl Book Club pick for the month of July, and we're actually about to have our discussion for this book. I'm so excited. This was a classic murder mystery, and it took place on a train. So basically this woman's entire family was taken out, and she identified the 6 people that were the cause of this, locked them on a train, and wanted to exact her revenge. But instead, what ended up happening was they all were getting picked off one by one, and we had to figure out who was doing the killing. It felt like a classic Agatha Christie style murder mystery. I loved the vibes of it. It felt like the movie Clue, which is one of my favorite movies. It just like knew what it was doing, you know? It was tropey, it was fun, it felt like old-timey and glamorous. I know this isn't getting the best reviews, but I kind of knew exactly what I was gonna get, and I got it, and I was happy. So yeah, I think it's solid. It's a good mystery, and I had a good time reading it. It would also be really good for fall. That's definitely one that I'm gonna be recommending in the coming months. And the last 4-star read that I have to recommend you is King of Ashes by S.A. Cosby. And this is a fast-paced, breakneck speed, heart-pumping thrill ride. It is just so good. It's emotional, it's intense, and we are following this hot shot guy who like really grew up and made something of himself, but his brother and sister are back in their hometown and they haven't really done much. His brother has gotten into drugs and his sister's just kind of getting roped into continuing the family business, which is a crematorium. His dad actually built a name for their family by this crematorium business, which is why he is called the King of Ashes. And now the prodigal son has to return and help his sister out with the business and help his brother get out of trouble because their dad is dying. And along the way, as he gets back into his hometown, he gets sucked into all of his family drama and their trauma and their past, and all of these things converge in just this explosive, intense, violent escapade. It's such a fast-paced book. S.A. Cosby is just always like easy to read, but it is still so intense. I will never get over the rate at which I flip pages when I'm reading an S.A. Cosby book. It's so fast. And you just need to drink in the story in one sitting. God, it's so good. And the emotional intensity at the end, like, it just sells it for me. I didn't feel as connected to this book as I did to Razorblade Tears and Blacktop Wasteland, but I still loved it. Next up, we have my 4.5 out of 5-star books. These ones were right at the cusp of being a new favorite, but there was just a little something that didn't get there for me. First up, we have the new Lisa Jewell. This is Don't Let Him In, and in this psychological thriller, we are following 3 women who are being duped by the same man, and we are basically waiting for him to get his comeuppance, for these 3 women to come together and exact their revenge. There's not really a core mystery to this book. It's just a slow-paced psychological takedown. And I love Lisa Jewell's writing style. I know that that is not for everyone, but it just really works for me. It's not my favorite of anything that she's written, but it felt a little nostalgic for me because it reminded me of some of her past books that I've really loved, like The Third Wife and The House We Grew Up In. If you like those books that I've recommended in the past, you're gonna love this one. It came really close to being a favorite for me, but I think it was just a little slow paced and it didn't give me that 5-star feeling. Regardless, I highly recommend it. I love the psychological vibes of it. I love the satisfying, cathartic ending. It was wonderful. Also, during my 24-hour readathon, I read Tell Me Lies by Carola Lovering. And I've always heard that this is a thriller. Carola Lovering has written some other thrillers that I've really liked, but this is more like Normal People by Sally Rooney than a traditional like mystery thriller. It's basically the tale of the most horrifying years-long situationship that you've ever heard of. It will just rip your heart out of your chest and tear it into a bunch of pieces. We're following this poor girl as she tries to navigate her way through a kind of half-committed relationship with a man who doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. And I've heard so many stories in real life of this exact thing happening. If you've survived a situationship that just nearly took you out, you will feel so seen reading this book. It is so genuine. It's just written with this visceral vibe to it. It's just so well done. It's emotional, it's intense, it feels real, like these characters are raw, and I felt so connected to them, especially our main character. I felt so much empathy for her. We follow them all the way from college, where this situationship starts, to like a decade in the future when they end up running into each other at a wedding and reconnecting. And it is a really satisfying story. I actually ended up liking this one more than Normal People, but I think if you like Normal People, you will like this one regardless. The only reason why I knocked off a 1/2 star from my rating is there's some kind of like dodgy mental health talk in here, and as a therapist, I really can't co-sign that. So if you want to hear the specifics of my complaints, I did give a full review where I went pretty in depth about those pieces in my 24-hour readathon vlog. So if you missed that one, I will link it up above and down below so you can watch it. And my last 4.5 out of 5 star read from July is Circe by Madeline Miller. And this is this epic tale of Greek mythology where we are expanding on the character of Circe, which usually people just kind of see Circe as this one stop that Odysseus had on his journey in the Odyssey. At least that's how I thought of her, because I studied the Odyssey. I actually took 8 years of Latin and Greek and Roman history, so I know a lot about Greek mythology, and I've translated a lot of the Odyssey and Iliad from Latin. It was so interesting to go back to that familiar source material, but with a modern feminist take on Circe's story. And I felt so incredibly emotionally connected to Circe throughout the story. Just seeing her life unfold and seeing how tragically misunderstood she is in mythology was so gratifying. I loved spending time with her, and I love this world that Madeline Miller created. I actually liked this one more than I liked Song of Achilles, but they definitely reminded me of each other. I think if you like one, you will definitely like the other. I think the reason that this got like put over the edge for me from Song of Achilles was the feminist arc just really landed for me, and I loved it. It didn't give me that 5-star feeling. I think I fell off a little bit of enjoying it at the end, because once we get into like her romance and who she settles down with, if you know, you know, there's just always like a little bit of a weird incestuous vibe with Greek mythology. So I can't really fault Madeline Miller for that, but it didn't land perfectly and lend itself to a 5-star read. Regardless, I think it's an amazing book. It is so well written, and if you like Greek mythology even a little bit, you will love Circe. And finally, the piece de resistance, my best book of July and my one 5-star read, is We Live Here Now by Sarah Pinborough. This is one of my favorite thrillers that I've read this year so far. It's getting me in the perfect mood for spooky season. It has that gothic horror feel and a really twisty thriller plot. I fucking loved this book. It is perfect to me. There were so many literary devices in here that just worked so well. There are metaphors in here that work so well. There is a level of commentary in here that works so well. It's a thriller that has more to say than just taking us through the plot of the mystery. It has a very typical setup where we're following a couple who just went through something harrowing, moving into this house in the country, and boom, surprise, it's haunted. But it goes into a territory that makes that structure feel totally new. And like I said, it's rife with great metaphor, commentary, and really juicy gothic scenes. It just put me, like I said, in the perfect mood for reading spooky gothic books over the next few months. And the feel of it, the connection to the characters, the twists at the end. Like, Sarah Pinborough is just always going to do it for me on those fronts. So this thriller was pretty flawless to me, and I cannot wait to rave about it in my best books of the year. So with that, those are going to be all of the 18 books that I read throughout the month of July. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video, and I hope you got a few good recommendations from it. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know down below if you made it to the end. Leave me the heart emoji of your choice, and also if you want, you can let me know your favorite book that you read last month in July. I always love chatting with y'all, and again, thank you so much for just choosing to hang out with me and hear about my reading month. I really appreciate ya. If you like this video, go ahead and give it a like and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I post wrap-up videos at the end of every single month, so if you don't want to miss one, hit subscribe. As always, don't forget to go to therapy and read a book this week, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!